The smears against RFK Jr., they're coming now because the Democrat leadership, they are terrified of his rise in the polls. He's on every single media channel, doing every single podcast, and his message is gaining traction faster than ever. They're worried about RFK Jr. First, in the 6 o'clock hour, we have so much to get through today. I'm Kat Peterson. This is the Morning Buzz. I'm live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You can see me there on all the social media channels. And be sure to like, subscribe, and share this out with your normie friends. So much to get to today, 6 a.m. First, there's an animated gender neutral Swedish coconut. Yeah. It's a gender neutral Swedish coconut, and it goes by the pronouns they, them. They, them is coming for your children. It's a children's song. It's a viral children's song. It's about a gender neutral Swedish coconut. And it's concerning that this is being pushed on kids in K through 12 schools. So we're going to get to that next. Bloomberg. There's this writer who has been blasting The Sound of Freedom, the movie, the film, and turns out this Bloomberg writer who blasts The Sound of Freedom says that it's a QAnon film, says it's a pro-Trump film. Turns out this guy has a past, and people have been digging into this guy's past, and I think there's a reason why he doesn't like the movie Sound of Freedom. He has some very questionable tweets out there about children. So we're going to get to this Bloomberg writer later. My sports fans out there, you guys are going to like this one. So Sports Illustrated, they went nuts over Brittney Griner making some sort of slam dunk. Okay, I say some sort of slam dunk because it really wasn't a slam dunk, but they go nuts over Brittney Griner dunking the basketball. And I'm going to roast her and Sports Illustrated because I know the basics of basketball. I'm not claiming to be a pro basketball player. I'm not claiming to even be a fan of the sport. I know the basics around the game. And I think you know the basics around the game and how basketball is played. And I don't know how Sports Illustrated could have gone nuts over Brittney Griner's dunk last night. So, all of this and more ahead on the Morning Buzz. Now, if you're watching on the live stream, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you're going to see this gender neutral Swedish coconut and how this viral kid song, it's viral. I mean, millions of views on YouTube, on Twitter, on all the social media, TikTok. This song is blowing up. And I'm worried that kids are going to see this. So you're going to watch it on the live stream, but you're going to hear it on the radio for my friends on the radio. And I'm sorry I have to do this. And like you, I'm sure you're going to have, like me, I'm sure you're going to have some bile in your throat after listening to this kid song. Here we go. Let's take a listen.
One gave birth to me. I'm a no gender Swede. It was the kindergarten lady that said to me. It was the kindergarten lady that said to me that I'm not a boy and I'm not a girl. I'm a coconut. I am the coconut. Oh, daddy yelled to me, kid, I'm a ding dong guy. Yes, daddy yelled to me, mom's got a butterfly. You got a willy or weakness. I cooked it up flower. Yes, daddy yelled to me, we got genders, you see. It was the kindergarten lady that said to me. It was the kindergarten lady that said to me that I'm not a boy. And I'm not a girl, I'm a coconut. I am the coconut. And one gave birth to me. I'm a no gender Swede. It was
Sorry, morning. So the way the lyrics go, it says it was the kindergarten lady who said to me that I'm not a boy and I'm not a girl. I am coconut. I'm the coconut head. So then it has images of the coconut having some dangly nuts, I guess, underneath the coconut, some stray nuts underneath the coconut's private region. And he has one pink shoe, one blue shoe. And I can't with this. This is insanity. I can't emphasize enough how much I'm begging anyone to tell me that this is some sort of hoax and I'm missing the satire. The reason they're targeting children is because kids are naive, impressionable, and gullible. This song is directed towards kids. The taste of bile in my mouth is overwhelming. That was nauseating. Okay, so now we can get on with the rest of the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Now, corporate journalismers, they are still so hell bent on creating a content attacking the movie Sound of Freedom. That is their goal this week. The corporate journalismers, they're talking with each other, and their goal is to try to take down the movie The Sound of Freedom. There's been reports of moviegoers who have had to deal with the radio playing while the movie is trying to play, the AC going out in some theaters across the country, some people just coming into the movie theater and saying, "You guys have to leave." So, moviegoers, they are being stopped when they go to watch the movie Sound of Freedom. The AMC CEO said that's not happening and that's conspiracy theory. However, the videos that have gone viral on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, people are posting video evidence of the movie being sabotaged by theaters across the country. And if you experience this, I'd love to talk with you. 309-451-9299. That's my phone number. You can text me anytime and text me if you go to watch The Sound of Freedom, if you're met with some sort of censorship or if you're met with some sort of sabotage. Let me know on that text line. I'd love to hear from you. But this is a movie about child sex trafficking, and it's based on a true story because a lot of conservatives are happy with this very important movie and how it's kicking Hollywood's butt. The media has to hate it. You understand? Because we like it and we like the importance of the film. I wouldn't even say I like it. I will never watch it again, likely. It's one of those films where you watch it once. It was very sad, very hard to get through. I did not have a dry eye in the film, watching the film. So it's very tough to get through. But the corporate journalismers, they have to hate it because we like it and we like the importance of the movie and we like how it's kicking Hollywood's butt. And these corporate journalismers, they're mortified at how much money the film is actually making. Now, this is an example of an attack. So this is a review from Bloomberg, but there's a twist, folks. So stick with me. There's a journalismer out there. His name is Noah Berlatzi. That's his name, Noah Berlatzi. And he had this to say in his movie review. Quote, many critics have linked the movie Sound of Freedom to pro-Trump QAnon conspiracy cult. They've also been startled by its mainstream success. But the truth is that the conspiratorial right and the Hollywood default aren't that different, which is why perhaps our polity has such difficulty rejecting QAnon, Trump, and fascism. So, that's what his review was in Bloomberg, and independent reporter Andy No found some interesting things about our friend Noah and his background that may give some insight into why he doesn't like this movie, Sound of Freedom. It starts with Noah being a spokesperson for a MAP advocacy group. M is for minor. A is for attracted. P is for, well, you get the gist, person. Minor attracted person. He's a spokesperson for an advocacy group for pedophiles. And he says here in a tweet, pedophiles are essentially a stigmatized group. Certain people get designated as deviants and people hate them. So this is a YouTuber. Her name is Shu. So she goes by the name of Shu on YouTube. A lot of these people don't use their real names. She took to the internet and explained who this guy is. She did some research on him as well, as Andy know. I'm going to share with you her thoughts and what she has gone through with this specific guy. His name is Noah Berlatzi, something like that. So let's take a listen. Here we go.
Interesting takes. Pedophiles are essentially a stigmatized group. Certain people get designated as deviants. People hate them. Yes. And parents are tyrants. Parent is an oppressive class, like rich people or white people. He also wrote a few blogs on the Prostasia website. Child sex workers' biggest threat: the police. Okay, let's back up for a second. There's no such thing as a child sex worker, Noah. That's called a human trafficking victim. Then I was thinking to myself, why does this Noah dude's account look so familiar? Turns out, he's the fucking journalist who got mad at me like a year ago for criticizing the Netflix movie Cuties. Audiences hate it because there's a moral panic right-wing campaign targeting it, fueled in part by racism and sexism directed at a black woman filmmaker. Wrong. Leftists like Shoe on Head and Vosh are critical of the film. Shoe on Head is a notorious alt-right asshole. Also, you just tagged 2 aggressive, horrible accounts. Please delete that tweet. You're putting people on the thread at risk.
So there you have it, folks. Shoe on Head is her name, and she is the YouTuber who put him on blast. And look, folks, the film had a budget of $14.5 million. This film managed to tell a very important and very sad story with like 10 times less the budget of the big guys. Okay, so they had a budget of $14.5 million. It's very small in comparison. And it made $10 million in just pre sales alone and has 85% critic and 99% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and an 8.6 out of 10 on IMDb as of now. So a lot of people like the film. A lot of people like the film. Sound of Freedom has a genuine core of righteousness that most call to action films do not. This dramatic film, it's dramatic and it takes a lot of pain. It takes pain to show that real children need help now. And it does all this while giving a more heartfelt story than Hollywood has in years. This is a heartfelt story. The media is lining up to hate it for whatever reason. And I think we can pretty much guess why Noah hates the film, Noah Berlatsky. All right, folks, we are going to be back. I have some more news stories for you. Particularly, I want to get into the dunk that Sports Illustrated celebrated yesterday. The dunk by Brittney Griner. And for those of you who understand a little bit about basketball and know how the game is played, you can watch the clip with me on the live stream. So go to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, see me there on the live stream. You can watch the dunk and you tell me if that looks like it's allowed in the game of baseball or basketball. See, I'm not a sports gal. I'll be back on the other side. Hey, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. If you are watching, go ahead, smash that like button. Let me know you're watching. And I have a question for you. Have you experienced the movie Sound of Freedom? And if you have experienced it, can you tell me if you were met with some sort of sabotage? We are going to be getting to Brittney Griner and how she was supposed to. I mean, allegedly, Sports Illustrated says that Brittney Griner made a slam dunk. It was not a slam dunk. She traveled, folks. You're supposed to dribble the ball. She like ran from one half of the court to the other half of the court, or down to the basket, and then she dunked the ball. But Sports Illustrated, the clip here, they just go insane, the commentators. And I'm going to roast her. I'm going to roast Sports Illustrated because I know the basics around the game of basketball. I'm not a sports fan, but I do know the basics. And Brittney Griner did not even get the basics right when it comes to basketball. And they still try to make WNBA a thing. And that's just not, it's never going to be a thing. People don't like watching it. I'm sorry, but it's just true. Female sports fans don't care enough to make WNBA happen. Okay. Now, also, I do want to talk about a female military recruit who is considering resigning. Who is considered resigning after being forced to shower with trans women with full male genitalia. Yes, that happened. And this is why our recruiting goals are not going to be met this year. And not just not met, but not met by a lot. By a lot, folks. 15,000. We are missing our military recruiting goals this year by 15,000. Also, an update on the cars that sprung a leak. Only one of the cars did, I guess, and it has silicon pellets. Now, there's other cars here in this derailment that are hazardous in materials. There's a chemical degreaser in one of the cars, and that itself has been deemed a carcinogen by the EPA. So those cars haven't sprung a leak yet, and there were a lot of things like liquid fertilizer on this derailed train in Philadelphia. And I'm telling you, the Department of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is the most incompetent yutz I've ever seen. He is a yutz, and I'm telling you, I think we're going to start to see more of these derailments. We saw one in East Palestine, Ohio. We're seeing another one. I mean, the amount of train derailments that have happened in this year, it's concerning, and it should concern you. I think that's the biggest threat. Liquid fertilizer, none of that liquid fertilizer is going to be able to be used. And that's going to mean lower yields for our farmers if they don't have their fertilizer, which is already in a small supply. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to go grab myself a cup of coffee, come back. But if you're watching right now, go ahead, throw into the comments section. Have you watched the movie Sound of Freedom? What did you think about it? Where'd you watch it? And did you come into any kind of, or did you come into, like, was there a sabotage, or did somebody try to sabotage your experience watching the film? I'll be right back. Okay, I got my coffee. Here it is, black as night, because I do not do cream or sugar. Let me know in the comments what you do. Cream, sugar, vanilla syrup. I always like hearing how people take their coffee. At my heart, I think I'm a barista, but all of the coffee shops are woke. So, Not all of them. Some of them are good. Bloom's Coffee is a really good place, and they don't advertise or anything like that. That's just where I really like to get my coffee. Bloom's Coffee, they are a family-owned business. I know the owner, and he's a very nice guy, young entrepreneur type. So, support local. Um, Now, one thing that I am going to be getting to is Brittney Griner, and her slam dunk, which really wasn't a slam dunk. And I just think it's funny that Sports Illustrated went completely bananas over this play. And I'm just thinking to myself, wait a second, wait a second. Um, she traveled. She traveled with the basketball. That's a straight up travel. So we're gonna be back. I've got a good news story for you and some housekeeping things about seats for soldiers. So you're listening to Cities 92.9. Drinking my coffee here in studio. Good morning. This is the morning buzz, and we've got so much to get to. Now, there's a few things that are super duper important for your morning to know. Homes are being evacuated after this train carrying all these hazardous materials that derailed in Philadelphia. People are leaving their homes as an abundance of caution. Now, the mainstream is saying that officials are saying that there is no hazard to the public, there is no threat to the community. There were 16 cars, only one of them sprung a leak, and this car had silicon pellets in it. Now, there's other cars that have things like a chemical degreaser, which the EPA has designated as a carcinogen. So, I don't know if that were to leak, that would be problematic. Hopefully, they get these derailments under control. We had a derailment that I actually went and covered as a young student reporter, and that was super concerning. We had paint. I remember seeing paint cans, and I mean, there were just fires for days, and the Bloomington Normal Fire Departments, I don't know how they did it. It was like 20 degrees under zero. The wind chill was excruciating, and they were out there uh, spraying down the fire every day because the fires just kept popping up. Because paint, I'm sure, is kind of hard to put out. I'm not a firefighter. I don't know. I'm not claiming to know any kind of science surrounding that. All I saw with my eyes is that the fires kept going. The fires kept going for like 2, 3 days, and they finally got all of the fires out and cleaned up that derailment right there in Uptown Normal. Now, this is concerning because there was also liquid fertilizer. So, what are we going to do if we don't have that fertilizer go to where it was supposed to go that was on that train? I'll tell you, lower yields. The farmers are not going to be producing a whole lot of food if they don't have their fertilizer, if their land is not fertile. So that's a big deal. This derailment is nothing that I feel like the officials in the mainstream are kind of dismissing it because there is no threat to the community right now. Um, there's all kinds of things that are going to have like almost a trickle down effect because this train derailed. Now, there's also this story about a female military recruit who is considering, well, has considered resigning after she was forced to shower with women who had full male genitalia, trans women, right? So, men who were pretending to be women. This female military recruit was very uncomfortable, and they're not really doing anything for her, the Pentagon. They issued kind of a blanket statement about the discomfort that she's experiencing. So we're going to get to that story plus an FBI special agent. He's a former FBI agent. He's backing up the IRS's whistleblowers claims about the DOJ and how they covered up Hunter Biden's tax crimes. So not only did the DOJ cover up Hunter Biden's tax crime, but the FBI was complicit in covering up Hunter Biden's tax crimes. and they were directed to do so. So there's this FBI agent who is backing up this IRS whistleblower's claims that the DOJ has actually been covering up this business dealings and his tax fraud that he got a sweetheart deal for. So we're going to be getting to all of that. Plus, Brittney Griner traveling with basketball, and Sports Illustrated, they go, berserk. They're like screaming. They're like, oh my goodness. The crowd goes wild because she makes the slam dunk. But I'm watching the video and I'm watching it on repeat and I'm thinking to myself, that doesn't look right. And I said, she traveled. So she literally, I mean, runs from the half court all the way to the basket and doesn't dribble the ball. I think that we all know the basics around, basketball and how the game is played. And it's so funny to see Sports Illustrated and these, sports commentators just go crazy over Brittney Griner. So all of that and more ahead here on the Morning Buzz. But first, I do want to talk a little bit about this nice news story. And I like to bring these to you here on the Morning Buzz to try to get away from the crazy because the news is nuts. A sailor and his dog were rescued in the Pacific Ocean over this past weekend after they spent about 3 months stranded at sea with nothing more than some fishing gear and each other's company. And they were on this catamaran. So, wow. If you've ever been on a catamaran, it's not like a real boat. It's more like a buoy, I guess. It's not super enclosed, I guess. I've been on a catamaran. They're so fun. But I don't think it'd be fun to spend 3 months stranded at sea with nothing more than some fishing gear. So, sometime around April, this 51-year-old, his name is Tim, and his dog Bella set sail for Mexico. But a month into their journey, a storm knocked out all of the electronics on the boat and it set them adrift. Oh boy. So Tim and Bella spent months floating in the ocean. They survived on raw fish that they caught themselves and drinking rain water for 3 months. So, in an amazing stroke of luck, Tim and Bella were spotted last week by a helicopter that happened to be flying along the large fishing boat on their way back to Mexico. So, so they were flying along with this large fishing boat on their way back to Mexico. So finding Tim and Bella was like finding a needle in a haystack in this enormous Pacific Ocean, uh, especially since the helicopter was not even actively looking for them. Right, this was all God. God wanted Tim and Bella to be back and to get off of that boat. So it was another a small miracle that Tim and Bella were also in good health. So 3 months stranded at sea on raw fish, you would think that they wouldn't be in good health, but for some odd reason, they were all right. I'd imagine that they lost some weight, right? During their adventure, Tim did a great job of staying out of the sun, and he was lucky to have Bella along for the ride, as having that companionship allowed Tim to stay optimistic until help had arrived. So, an incredible news story, and true. I mean, they were rescued from the Pacific Ocean over this past weekend. So that was happening. What'd you do this weekend? All right, we're gonna be back here on the Morning Buzz. Like I said, Brittney Griner, she made a slam dunk. It wasn't real because she traveled with the basketball. But yet, Sports Illustrated, they were like, "Oh my gosh, we love Brittney Griner." Why? I'll be back. Good morning. Hey, if you're watching right now, go ahead, throw into the comments section what you think about the movie Sound of Freedom. That's my question today. Thoughts on the movie Sound of Freedom? Um, now, we are going to be revisiting that story here coming up maybe in the 8 o'clock hour about how this man, and this is just so disturbing, and Protasia, look this up in your spare time. Protasia. Actually, I could probably just share this with you guys now. Protasia is an organization that promotes sex education. That's what they call it. But this is all about minor attracted people. And you're thinking to yourself, I know, um, yeah, minor attracted people? What? Um, okay, minor need support. Society is failing them. Okay, here we go. This is Protasia. It's a foundation. And what's so disturbing about this, and I've done this story before, is that we have organizations like PayPal um, allowing this kind of garbage. And this foundation is, selling sponsorships. So this is the website. This is why I stopped using PayPal because they support this organization. It's called Protasia, the Protasia Foundation, and they're all about minor attracted people. So, if you're concerned that you might be a pedophile, the good news is that it's less likely than you think. Unfortunately, the term pedophile is often misused, especially in the media, where it is used as an attention grabber and a scare tactic. My God, this is disgusting, and I'm gonna need to take a sip of coffee here and calm down a second. There is confusion over the term itself, but it does not mean you are a pedophile if, for example, you experience pleasurable fantasies or memories about childhood experiences. Um, if you have sexual interest in teenagers, if you read or write fiction about the topic, or if there is an age gap relationship with your 18 plus partner. It's important to recognize that even if you are a pedophile, that does not mean you are doomed to harm anyone. It just means you have an atypical sexual attraction, an attraction only. It does not mean that you will go and sexually offend. It does not mean that you are a monster. No, pedophilia does mean you are a monster. People with pedophilia have an atypical sexual interest. Um, or people are either have an atypical sexual interest, pedophile, or pedophilia is specific. It's an ongoing attraction to prepubescent children aged 13 or younger. Hebephilia is an attraction to prepubescent and early adolescence. I don't even know any of this. I just know pedophile. Okay, if you're attracted to somebody who is under the age of 18, 13 or younger, that's what are you talking about? Are you trying to include? This is what concerns me so much about Democrats trying to push for voting age to be lowered to 16. They want children to be considered adults at the age of 16 and to vote at the age of 16 so that way they can consider them up for grabs when it comes to these pedophiles. Pedophilia to me has always been defined as if you are attracted or if you are sexually abusing and have thoughts about hurting children sexually under the age of 18. Now, protasia, the way they defined it, they say it's an ongoing attraction to prepubescent children aged 13 or younger. What? Um, so it goes in, I mean, this whole article on protasia, it goes into myths. They say another myth is that pedophiles and other minor attracted people to use the less stigmatized term, they say MAP, minor attracted people, have sexual urges that are uncontrollable. It is important to note that MAPs, minor attracted people, don't have any more urges than the average person because of their attraction. That's disgusting. This is so pseudoscience crazy. I just can't. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble. I'm everywhere. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, share this out with your normie friends. Earlier this hour, I shared with you this viral kid song about a gender neutral Swedish coconut. Yes. And they, them, it's like a Swedish coconut. It's a cartoon coconut and it goes by the pronouns they, them, I guess, because it says it's not a boy, it's not a girl, it's a Swedish coconut, and it's gross. I'm gonna play it here for you because I think it's worth a replay. And somebody had texted me on the text line and they said play that one song again because I didn't catch all of the lyrics. I'll play it here for you here on the live stream, and you can see that the little coconut has some nuts dangling from him. And apparently, this coconut is in kindergarten. So, this is clearly targeted towards children. This morning, I was just like, what? And this is a viral song. This is going around everywhere. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
One gave birth to me. I'm a no gender sweet. It was the kindergarten lady that said to me. It was the kindergarten lady that said to me that I'm not a boy and I'm not a girl. I'm a coconut. I am the coconut. Oh, daddy yelled to me, kid, I'm a ding dong guy. Yes, daddy yelled to me, mom's got a butterfly. You got a willy or weakness. I cooked it up flower. Yes, daddy yelled to me, we got genders, you see. It was the kindergarten lady that said to me. It was the kindergarten lady that said to me that I'm not a boy and I'm not a girl. I'm a coconut. I am the coconut. And one gave birth to me. I'm a no gender sweet. It was the kinder.
So there's like this little butterfly in the genital region of this Swedish coconut who apparently is in kindergarten. And this kindergarten lady, so his kindergarten teacher tells him that he's not a boy or a girl. And then he talks about his dad and how his dad tells him that mom has a butterfly and dad has a ding ding, but there's no such thing because there's genders. I mean, this is deeply disturbing and this is targeted towards children. They come for your children because they're impressionable, they're gullible, and they're naive. That's why they're targeting children with this. Do you want to shift gears? Let's talk about Brittney Griner and how she traveled with this basketball. So the media is they're still trying to make the WNBA happen. Female sports fans don't care enough to make the WNBA happen. I'm just going to be honest with you, and I don't know. I think a majority of women just watch sports because their husbands, their boyfriends watch sports, and you just kind of tag along. It doesn't mean that females don't like sports. It's just a different fan base. And I mean, I'm not going to argue with statistics here. Women just don't watch sports as much as men. Okay. And female sports fans don't care enough to make the WNBA happen. But the media still flops covering the WNBA like they're LeBron James, and they try to make it happen so bad. The most minimal skills. So if like some sort of female athlete in the WNBA does something like, oh, I don't know, dribble a basketball, they're like, yes, queen, queen, yes, go you, slay girl, to within inch of its life, because they try to make it seem watchable or enjoyable, and they just praise women in sports for doing the most basic, minimal skills. It's kind of offensive. Uh, now, I think it's more WNBA that they're really bad about this, and they're trying too hard. And then you have this clip that I'm going to get to here from Sports Illustrated. They tweeted this out, and They're losing it in this clip. They're like losing it because Brittney Griner dunked a basketball. Before we get to the clip, maybe not all of you know, the finer points of the game. Let me kind of lay this out for you. When a player bounces the ball, that's called dribbling. They can't move around the court unless they're dribbling the ball. If they walk without dribbling, that's called traveling. It's a foul, and the referee is supposed to blow the whistle. Okay? Okay. I think we all understand the basics of basketball, but the folks here at Sports Illustrated don't seem to quite understand the basics of basketball. So let's roast them a bit, shall we? Let's take a listen to what Sports Illustrated and these commentators in the box said about Brittney Griner here making this slam dunk. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
BG is back. You will see this weekend in that. There it is. BG is back. You will see this.
Okay, so I played it a couple of times for you on the live stream. You can see it there. And for my radio friends who didn't see it, Brittney Griner is doing something called traveling. She didn't dribble the ball. She ran with the ball and she threw it up into the net and she barely dunked it. It's like, she's a tall, tall woman. She jumped and then she kind of placed the ball. She didn't jump very high. Now, the basketball player Brittney Griner, she's the basketball player who got arrested in Russia for weed, for pot, and who the Biden administration traded for a guy called the Merchant of Death. And we didn't get the Marine who was imprisoned in Russia. We traded Brittney Griner for the Merchant of Death. So they got the Merchant of Death back, Russia did, and we got Brittney Griner, a WNBA basketball player who isn't really all that great at basketball, clearly. And we didn't bother getting the Marine who was imprisoned in Russia. So Griner checks off more than one of the boxes on the left's preferred marginalized checklist. She's a woman, she's Black, and she's lesbian. So she checks off about 3 boxes on the left's preferred marginalized checklist, or as I like to call it, the leftist bingo card. So there's all kinds of different sections on this bingo card, and if you are checking off all of these different boxes, then you're peak leftist and they love you. So the last time she traveled like this, she ended up in a Russian prison. I've got some punchlines here, folks. Get ready for them. At least she learned to travel without drugs in her purse. She better watch out. The last time she traveled like this, she ended up in a Russian prison. There's so much traveling going on here in this play that it's technically regulated by the Department of Transportation. Actually, let's hope that the Department of Transportation doesn't regulate her traveling here, because the Department of Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, is liable to get derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, if she were to be regulated for this kind of traveling. So yes, she did not dribble that ball. She traveled. And I love how the internet is coming up with all of these punchlines. Speaking of derailing, there was a train derailment in Philadelphia. There were 16 cars that sprung. One of the cars sprung a leak. Now there's contents, silicon pellets. Now there's no threat to the community, as officials say, but I want to break down what's in these cars and why it's bad that this train derailed. Train derailments are bad, but specifically this train had chemicals on it and materials on it that we need. We need liquid fertilizer. It's already in short supply. So I'm going to be back with that, plus a military female recruit. She's considered resigning after she's been forced to shower with trans women who have full male genitalia. It's a disturbing story, and this whole situation This is why we're not going to meet our recruiting goals this year. I'm back after this. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I'd imagine you're talking about the Swedish coconut. So, yeah, the Swedish coconut I played for you. That is a viral clip. Now, I am begging for someone to try to find out if this is some sort of joke, some sort of hoax, some sort of satire, if somebody created this out of like, what am I missing here? I can't emphasize strongly how much I'm begging anyone to tell me that this is a hoax or that I'm missing the satire. This is disturbing. There was a Swedish coconut, I guess a kindergartner Swedish coconut. That's, what he claims in the video is that his kindergartner teacher told him that there's no such thing as a boy and a girl, and that he's not a boy or a girl, and that he's a coconut. He's a they, them. And uh, it's disturbing because he talks about how his dad told him one time that mommy has a butterfly and that he has a ding dong. So it's deeply uh, disturbing, and there's still a taste of bile in my mouth, and it's overwhelming. They target children because they are naive, impressionable, and gullible. And that brings me to the corporate journalismers who are hell bent on trying to create content here, attacking the film Sound of Freedom. And there is this specific corporate journalismer who works for the Washington Post. He does, work for, oh gosh, Noah Berlatzi. Look him up. He's done all kinds of work for these leftist organizations, and it's just deeply disturbing. What he is. So he's a minor attracted person advocate. Um, and in his byline, he works for Atlantic, WAPO, or has worked for NBC. Um, uh, it's it's rough. Noah Berlatsky is his name, and that's what his Twitter bio says, is that he's worked for the Independent, NBC Think, Public Notice, Atlantic, Washington Post. So we know who this guy is. But there's been work done by independent reporters who have found that this guy is actually the head of an advocacy group called Minor Attracted People. So MAP, that's what they're calling pedophiles. And he works for the Protesia Foundation, or has done work for the Protesia Foundation, from what I'm understanding about this Noah Berlatzi fellow. And he said that he hated the movie Sound of Freedom, and that it's a bunch of right wing moral panic, and that this is a QAnon film and it's a pro Trump film. The reason why he feels that way is because this fellow is an advocate for minor attracted people, as they call it. They say that that's a less stigmatized term, and if you go to the Protesia Foundation website, you can see that they've redefined the word pedophile. They say that pedophilia is actually a, quote, ongoing attraction to prepubescent children aged 13 and younger. Um, what? No, pedophilia is anybody attracted or attracted. I don't even want to use that word. Anybody who sexually abuses children under the age of 18 or has thoughts. I'm sorry. Even your thoughts are disturbing, and you need to be locked away for your, not your thoughts, but this is a statistic after statistic shows that if you feel these thoughts, that you are going to act on them eventually. It's a form of addiction. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for joining me. And, I've been doing some digging on our friend Noah. He uses he, him pronouns. He used to work for Atlantic, Washington Post, NBC Think. He used to work for Public Notice. And look, folks, he worked as a minor attracted person advocate. Yes. He worked for an advocacy group. I think it's the Protasia Foundation. If you have time today at lunch, you can kind of just go through this website. It's disturbing. They redefine the word pedophile and they use a less offensive term and a less stigmatized term called minor attracted person. And they even redefine pedophilia. They say that pedophilia is an ongoing attraction to prepubescent children aged 13 and younger. So why am I talking about this fellow Noah Berlatzi? That's his name, Noah Berlatzi. Well, he just recently put out a review and um he did this in Bloomberg. This is what he wrote. Many critics have linked Sound of Freedom to a pro-Trump QAnon conspiracy cult. They have also been startled by its mainstream success, but the truth is that the conspiratorial right and Hollywood default aren't that different. So then he goes into how, some people within the leftist political society actually have a difficult time rejecting QAnon, Trump, and fascism. What? So the reason why, and I'm just going to give you some insight here, his background may give insight into why he doesn't like the movie The Sound of Freedom. He's a spokesperson for a minor attracted person advocacy group, MAP. M is for minor, A is for attracted, P is for person. This is disturbing, and has tweets. I've got the receipts. He says pedophiles are essentially a stigmatized group. Certain people get designated as deviants and people hate them. Yeah, I like this comment here. All pedophiles need to be castrated. RT, thanks so much for joining me here on the Facebook, YouTube, Twitter live stream. You guys can see me there in the 7 o'clock hour. What are we getting to? Well, I do want to talk about the former FBI special agent backing up now the IRS whistleblower who claimed that the DOJ, the Department of Justice, is now covering up Hunter Biden's tax crimes and has been for quite some time. But now we've got another guy coming forward, his FBI special agent, talking about a time where they were supposed to interview Hunter Biden, but people higher above him called it off and said, hey, we're not going to interview him. We've got to wait until Hunter Biden comes to us. What? That's next here on the Morning Buzz. 309-451-9299. Okay, folks, we're going to be back in just about 30 seconds. A bit later in the show, we'll talk about the former FBI special agent backing up this new IRS whistleblower. I mean, the FBI agent, the special agent, he's new. We know of the IRS whistleblowers who have claimed that the DOJ has been actively working to cover up Hunter Biden's tax crimes. But now we have a new special agent who is backing up this whistleblower statement. So we have multiple people now coming out and saying that the DOJ actively covered this up. He provides some sort of story about how there was a time where they were supposed to go in and interview Hunter Biden, but it was called off by the oversight of the FBI. He was a supervisory special agent. So we're going to be talking about that coming up in just a little while. But Mike Coolidge joins me next here on the Morning Buzz.
As of January 1st, 2023, the following things will go into effect, and people need to be aware of this. It abolishes cash bail for almost every offense. This includes, but isn't limited to, kidnapping, armed robbery, second-degree murder, drug-induced homicide, aggravated DUI, threatening a public official, and aggravated fleeing and eluding. Offenders released on electronic monitoring have to be in violation for 48 hours before law enforcement can act. They could almost drive to Alaska before we can even look for them. It denies victims their constitutional rights. And keep this in mind, businesses and homeowners. Officers will no longer be able to remove trespassers from your residence or your businesses. Someone could decide to live in your shed, and all we can do is give them a ticket. You have to decide what level of force is required to remove them and whether or not it's legal. This is a massive threat to the residents of Oral Park, Cook County, and Illinois.
And there we have it. I dubbed that a while ago with the music from the Purge movie. And we're talking about the Safety Act today. Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the Safety Act into law last year, and it eliminates cash bail. Now, the Illinois Supreme Court, they're actually expected to announce its ruling just in a couple of hours on the future of cash bail in this state. Joining me here to break it down, Mike Coolidge, who is a former congressional candidate, Army officer. He was the PAC spokesman for people who play by the rules. They were very instrumental in raising awareness about the Safety Act back in the day. Mike Coolidge also had a syndicated radio program called The Mike Coolidge Show. He's currently the chairman of the Ogle County Republicans. He's the owner of TMKS LLC, which is a communications consulting firm. He's a lifelong conservative activist. Follow him on Twitter. That's Coolidge, spelled with a K. Mike Coolidge, thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. Let's break it down. The Safety Act. First, I want to talk about people who play by the rules and how they were instrumental in, hang on, let me get this out of here. Here we go. Okay. So I want to talk about people who play by the rules and how they were instrumental in raising awareness about the Safety Act. You guys actually, I think, had something to do with the Joe Rogan podcast picking this up.
This whole purge law, which is what the Safety Act was given the moniker of by Joe Rogan, by a bunch of things, not to pat ourselves in the back, but that was a piece that I wrote in Real Clear Politics about a year ago in July. I based that off a segment that Dan Proft, the president of People Who Play by the Rules PAC, talked about on the show, Purge Law, about this, this fictional movie where crime is legal for 6 hours a year or 12 hours a year. And Joe Rogan, after we wrote this piece and it kind of went viral online, talked about it. Greg Gutfeld talked about it. Dan Proft was eventually on Tucker Carlson talking about it. I mean, it turned into a national story, and it was over something extremely important. That is safety and crime and people being let out on no bail if they commit some extremely bad things like second-degree murder, arson, drug-induced homicide, robbery, kidnapping, aggravated burglary, aggravated battery, burglary, intimidation, threatening a public official, and so on and so forth. All of these things, these 12 non-detainable offenses, they passed in the early part of 2021. So we're talking about, what, 2.5 years ago. If you remember, that was still in the fever of the George Floyd summer, the previous summer, and these extreme laws that were passed. We passed the most extreme one in the entire country. Well, Pritzker didn't change his tune. We eventually, I think, influenced him to make changes to it. But what's going to happen today at 9 o'clock is the Illinois Supreme Court, 2 members of which, by the way, got gigantic campaign contributions from the aforementioned Governor J.B. Pritzker. So I'm not holding my breath that this is going to be ruled unconstitutional, Kat. I'll be very, very happy, and we all should be extremely happy if it is deemed unconstitutional. But at 9 a.m. today, we'll find out whether this is going to be the law of the land or if it's thrown out completely. There's the third option. They could just shrug and say, no, we're not going to do anything on it. And they'll just kick the can down the road. But that's we're going to find that out in a short period of time, Kat.
Right. And, I want to point this out. Among those making the decision, you already pointed this out, Mary Kay O'Brien. Here's the numbers, folks. She received $1 million, which I believe is the campaign, and you would know this, Mike, max. Like, the contributions are insane. He actually changed a law, I believe, Governor J.B. Pritzker, to make it to where you could do, like, he tried to say, like, oh, let's limit campaign contributions to $500,000. But he put something in that law to make it to where he could donate $500,000 from his personal coffers and $500,000 from his campaign. So I don't know what exactly the law was, but he kind of finagled it to make it to where you could donate $1 million still.
It's such an insane conflict of interest. You mentioned that I ran for Congress, and one of the things you learn when you run for a federal position is that you're maxed out at $2,900. I could have Elon Musk as a supporter. The biggest check he could give me in running for Congress, anyone running for Congress, is just $2,900. That is to stop this kind of stuff from happening. People getting bought out by billionaires. Well, if a judge can get $1 million check, I mean, it's legal. It was passed. It's not saying you do, but it's unethical. If a judge who's ruling on something that the governor himself signed into law, and a couple of years or a year or so before this is going to be deemed unconstitutional or not, it's just such an insane conflict of interest. But I hope and pray, and we should all hope and pray, and this is real stuff, because we will have a lawless society in so many ways. It will be closer to the purge law than we currently are if these judges did not have integrity and adherence to the Illinois Constitution and read it properly and said, no, this is taking power away from judges and giving it to legislators who pass this willy-nilly in a frenzy in the middle of the night at like 3:30 in the morning, the worst possible way laws should be passed. And hopefully the judges will come to their senses here and say that, no, guys, this is ridiculous. Start over, and it won't get passed again. And we can have a semblance of sanity here in our state.
And, I talked with our McLean County state's attorney, and she said that she went to court and there was this Kankakee County courtroom, and she broke it down to where, there were parts of the Safety Act that were shut down by this Kankakee County court. But now they're kind of dealing with the cash bail side of this thing. So
yes,
there was one part of the Safety Act that I think people were really concerned about, where they were, arson, the homicide, right? That was all stuff that
secondary murder. Yeah.
You couldn't arrest people for, or you couldn't hold people.
Right. You could arrest them, but you couldn't detain them.
Yeah. And they got rid of that part, I think. I'm not too sure about that, but I think they got rid of that part and they amended the Safety Act. And now they're concerned with the ending of cash bail. There's also another thing in there where victims, right, of domestic violence, that they aren't protected. The judge can't order that this domestic violence abuser, the judge can't order that person to not have contact with that victim, or to like it's very anti-victim. And at the time, our McLean County State's Attorney Erica Reynolds, she says the victim has the right to have the victim and the victim family considered in denying or fixing the amount of bail, determining whether or not release was appropriate. So domestic abusers, or domestic violence abusers, what is happening is that judges cannot detain them or deny them like cash bail. So it used to be where you could detain them and you could fix the amount of bail. It's kind of a little over my head. I don't understand everything about the Safety Act, but she talks about the Pretrial Fairness Act and how it never considers the victim. And that's the part in the Safety Act that they're addressing today, I think, in the Supreme Court. I don't know, Mike, if you know.
No, if they rule that the whole thing's unconstitutional, the whole thing will be thrown out, which is what we're hoping and praying for. But what the bigger picture here is these tweaks that they made to the Safety Act are vindication that we, and not just people who play by the rules pack, but everyone who, even some Democrat state's attorneys were vehemently against this. The vast majority of state's attorneys throughout their entire state were vehemently against the Safety Act as it was originally written. And if people didn't speak up, if people didn't raise hell about this, we would have the most extreme pro-criminal law in the entire country. So through one side of his mouth, J.B. Pritzker said, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. You guys are being hysterical. This is crazy." And then, yes, they said, we better make some little changes here because this is going to cause extreme mayhem in our cities. Mm-hmm. And so they did make these little tweaks, but all of it will be thrown out, thankfully, if the Supreme Court rules that it's unconstitutional today. 3 options. It's unconstitutional. They'll kick the can down the road and say that they're not ruling on it at all, which the U.S. Supreme Court does sometimes. Or they'll say, nope, it's good to go. It is now law, and watch things change almost immediately in our state, and pray for the safety of our communities, honestly. So we'll know at 9 a.m. this morning, supposedly, according to the spokesman for the Supreme Court, Illinois Supreme Court, they're going to release these opinions. They already decided they're just going to release the news about it this morning.
It's concerning. We already have, and I would imagine if this were to get passed, and it's very likely, we've got Mary Kay O'Brien. What's the other one? Elizabeth Rockford or something like that. So they both got big campaign contributions from Governor J.B. Pritzker. Now, what I foresee happening is DAs across the state are going to be fleeing. So we already see that in Cook County. I think they had 3 super long-term DAs. I mean, 20 plus years under their belt. They've sent in resignation, scathing resignation letters that went after the Kim Fox and the Cook County system there. And they left the state of Illinois because they could no longer act as a prosecutor. It's almost like they don't want prosecutors to do their job. They want prosecutors to act as criminal defense attorneys. That's what I believe we're headed towards.
Yeah. I mean, it's a death spiral. And in many cases, it will literally be a death spiral. People will die if this law is rubber stamped by the Illinois Supreme Court. When you see such extreme things passed, the good people, the rational people, can either stay and fight, which I'm doing and you're doing, and hopefully a lot of other people will do, or, and I don't blame them, I totally understand, but a lot of people say no, or to heck with it. I'm moving to Indiana, I'm moving to Florida, I'm moving wherever, where they have some level of sanity in their state capitals and in their city governments. I get it, I understand it, but if nobody stays and fights, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And we're going to keep fighting.
I do want to switch gears. One more story before I let you go. Last year, there was, or actually not last year, but I think it was, I don't know when he made the movie or the song Fast Car, Luke Combs, who's
Yeah.
a straight white male, and we have Tracy Chapman's, who is a black female lesbian, I think, or I guess I gotta say queer now. I guess he's trying to say that Fast Car was actually written for I don't know. It's a race and sexuality thing. So break that story down for me. What's going on with
Yes.
Tracy Chapman?
I'm gonna pull my Generation X card with you, Kat. 1988, Tracy Chapman writes this song that just goes crazy popular, huge hit, nominated for 3 Grammys, record song of the year. People knew at the time, yeah, she was black, she was lesbian. People didn't care. They cared that she wrote a great music. She didn't have a rainbow flag on her sleeve. She wasn't saying, everybody celebrate me. She was and is a songwriter. Like Boy George, you can have any personal opinion you want about his personal life. He didn't wear, he wrote great songs. Anyway, she writes this great song, and then Luke Combs, a country artist, covers it. Huge hit. Makes Tracy Chapman $500,000 in royalties this year for a song she wrote in 1988. She's thrilled. She's happy. There's pictures of them hugging each other. She's like, this is great. I never thought it's a country song, but he made it a country song. Everybody's happy, right? Nope, not a white liberal writer for the Washington Post named Emily Yar, who says it's bringing up some complicated emotions in fans and singers who know that Chapman, as a queer black woman, would have an almost zero chance at the achievement that Luke Combs had himself. Making up racism and homophobia and everything else where it doesn't exist. The artists are happy, but this white liberal Washington Post writer has to find problems where they don't exist, intentionally dividing people, and it's just absolutely nuts. It's a great song, both versions, and I highly recommend people listen to it and don't listen to idiots like Emily Yar who stoke division, fear, and hatred among Americans, where we should find things that we have in common, like great music and great songs.
Yeah, and I just don't. It's this corporate journalisming content creators there at the Washington Post. I'm not surprised that they felt it was necessary to try and create racism and homophobia where it doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I didn't even know that Tracy Chapman. I had no idea that it was an 88 hit of Fast Car, and he just
Huge.
redid it right into a country song, paid her royalties and everything. So I don't understand the issue. They are bored. That's what it is. They live for
That's
this
exactly
stuff.
right.
They're bored.
You hit the nail on the head. They're bored. And they're like, wait, there's no racism or homophobia going on. Can we create some? Can we create it out of whole cloth? What about that white country singer guy, heterosexual male, singing a song that a black female did, 30 years ago? Can we make some hay out of that? Do people have problems with it? No one has a problem with it. Everyone's happy. Well, let's have a problem with it ourselves and turn it into a story. And maybe we're getting the bait, Kat. Maybe we are doing exactly what they wanted us to. But I'm sorry, you have to call out this idiocy and this hatred of and this stoking of hatred, I should say, where it just is so uncalled for. Everyone's happy, everyone's enjoying great music, and here comes the Washington Post, raining on our parade.
Exactly. Mike Coolidge, you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. Go follow him, folks. Coolidge. It's spelled with a K. Go follow him on Twitter. We'll be back on the other side of this break. All Democrats all over the country are guilty of corruption. Every last one of them. You'd be correct. Even the dog catcher. Don't believe me? I'm telling you right now, the dog catcher is corrupt. So we're going to be back. I've got some national news that I want to share with you guys, specifically this female military recruit. She's 18 years old, and she's complaining about being forced to sleep in between 2 individuals who were supposedly changing from male to female. So the girl has had to shower. The 18-year-old military recruit has had to shower with these individuals, and she is reporting now significant distress about this matter. And the individuals housed with this 18-year-old girl had initiated some chemical interventions in order to change their transgender. So they've been taking hormones, but they have not had the reassignment surgery. So their genitalia is fully intact. And she has to shower with these individuals, and it makes her uncomfortable. So she is considering having to resign because of this. Now, the Pentagon released a statement to Fox News Digital about this. They said that the Department of Defense policy is that service members must be treated with dignity and respect, and we would encourage any troop who is feeling anyone or any troop who is feeling uncomfortable or has concerns about privacy in shared spaces to work through their chain of command. Of course, she's not going to do that. Okay, she's going to face backlash. She's going to face things. I mean, it could harm her career. I mean, her best option right now is to probably resign from her very early career. I'm going to break down how many recruits we are short of our 65,000 goal this year. The U.S. military chiefs continue to express that there's concern about recruiting numbers. And if they don't improve, then I don't know if we're going to be able to face the next great power threat, deal with these two conflicts that could be happening: China, Taiwan, Russia, Ukraine. I don't know if we're going to be able to deal with all of that, being that we aren't meeting our recruiting goals. This is a huge issue and nobody talks about it. 309-451-9299. Always text in. We are talking a little bit about the Safety Act. So coming up in just about a couple of hours, they're going to decide on the constitutionality of the Safety Act. So pray today, send up a big old prayer, praying that this Safety Act is shot down. So they argued that the Victims' Rights Act was being violated by the Safety Act here in this Kankakee County court. So I did this story. Many Illinoisans have been scratching their heads when it comes to the Safety Act. A Kankakee County judge sided with prosecutors like McLean County State's Attorney Erica Reynolds and sheriffs from across the state, including a couple of Democrats, right, who said that the Safety Act is wrong. Now, the ruling went into effect, and it only affected a portion of the Safety Act. Now, this Supreme Court ruling is going to nix it entirely. It goes up to the Supreme Court, and it's not going to be divvied out in this pre-trial fairness act and the rest of the Safety Act. So blah, blah, blah. There's two divisions here of the Safety Act. One addresses cash bail. The other addresses things like what is a detainable offense. So there's a ruling in place currently. The plaintiffs argued on behalf of defendants and victims. We argue that the defendants are entitled to some sort of bail when they are charged with a crime. Our concern was that under the Pre-Trial Fairness Act, that there would be people sitting in jail after a detention determination is made, and then they're stuck in jail until the case is resolved. So they're worried that if they don't get cash bail, then they're going to be stuck in jail. Cash bail is good. The court was in favor of the plaintiffs, and the defendant should have some type of bail. Another argument presented by the plaintiffs was that the Safety Act violated the separation of powers clause. So they argued that the Victims' Rights Act was also being violated in the Safety Act. So there was all kinds of things. So let's get into the Victims' Rights Act. The victim has the right to have the victim and the victim's family considered in denying or fixing the bail amount and determining whether or not to release was appropriate, and then setting conditions if the defendant is released from custody. So the Pretrial Fairness Act never considers the victims. Illinois has been a state that's been very aggressive in protecting victims' rights until now. So Reynolds was frustrated with Governor J.B. Pritzker lying and saying that this wasn't going to hurt victims. Domestic battery is a big issue, and the governor specifically said domestic abuse victim would be protected. But in the litigation, they took the opposite approach and indicated only felonies can be detained. So domestic abuse and domestic battery is a misdemeanor, and they were trying to say that misdemeanors can't be detained. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. I can't believe it. In just a couple of hours, the fate of Illinois will be determined by people on the Supreme Court, the Illinois Supreme Court. Who's on the Illinois Supreme Court? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, it turns out that Mary Kay O'Brien, who received $1 million from Governor J.B. Pritzker, is on the Supreme Court that's going to hear oral arguments today about the Safety Act, and she is going to be a part of the decision whether to strike all of the Safety Act down. Also, Elizabeth Rockford, they won the 2 open seats over Republican rivals, and they were given large sums of money by Governor J.B. Pritzker. Conflict of interest, don't you say? Now, there was something that happened in Kankakee County, and I sat down with Erica Reynolds. We talked about it, about how the Safety Act has these 2 different divisions, right? There was this whole idea of what is and isn't a detainable offense. If I kill somebody, is that detainable offense? Prior to this Kankakee County ruling, it was not a detainable offense. If I went out there in cold blood and killed somebody, that doesn't mean I could have gotten arrested, but that meant that I couldn't be detained and stay in prison. And post some sort of bail. So those are non-detainable offensive things like arson, murder, all these types of things. So that was all struck down earlier this year. What time? January. That was all struck down, and they amended it to include those as detainable offenses. Now, they said misdemeanors are non-detainable. That's where there's a big problem, and they were trying to fight this in court because what's a misdemeanor? Domestic battery is a misdemeanor. And the victim has rights. Okay, there's something called a Victims' Rights Act. And you should be able to detain, and the judge should have some sort of determining power onto whether or not to release somebody who commits domestic battery or domestic violence against somebody. Reynolds, at the time, in January, when they had all of this go through the Kankakee County Court, and the Kankakee County judge sided with the prosecutors, like McLean County State's Attorney's Erica Reynolds. So she said at the time, the Pretrial Fairness Act never considers the victim. Illinois has been a state that has been very aggressive in protecting victims' rights until now. Governor J.B. Pritzker, he was lying in court. That's what she was frustrated that he was lying in court about this, and that the litigation took the opposite approach of protecting domestic abuse victims, because a judge should be able to determine if somebody's safety is at risk if this person were to be let out and non-detained. They have every right to post bail, right, if there is bail, but you can determine bail based off of, hey, considering different things about the victim, the victim's family, and you can fix the amount of bail, determining whether or not release was appropriate, and then setting conditions if the defendant is released from custody. The Safety Act gets rid of all of that. It's very anti-victim, end of the day. So today in the Illinois Supreme Court, we're going to be patiently awaiting the determination of the Supreme Court. And there's 3 options. Unconstitutional. We're not going to rule on it today. We're going to, pass which I think is probably the most likely. And yes, it is constitutional. We're going to enact the Safety Act, which would mean complete havoc for the state of Illinois. We will be living in the purge. People will not be detained. People will not have cash bail. That would end cash bail. That would end our system. We will be in the purge. And we're going to see it happen very, very quickly. So Pritzker said that the elimination of cash bail would protect a hypothetical mother stealing bread to feed her family from sitting in jail. Reynolds, Erica Reynolds from McLean County here at the state's attorney. She's the youngest state's attorney ever, by the way. She's sharp, And she said that that does not happen in McLean County. And I love how Pritzker operates on these hypotheticals. So I'm going to be resharing this story that I did back in January. It breaks down what happened in Kankakee County when it was deemed, and the judge sided with prosecutors and sheriffs from across the state who want the Safety Act to be eliminated. I think that's important background. Um, Now, I know that the Illinois Supreme Court is probably going to be looking at this case and what this judge had said. And I hope that they realize that this is unconstitutional and it would essentially make Illinois a purge state, a purge law. This is the purge. Okay, I do want to talk a little bit about this story coming from the Pennsylvania. So, yeah, let's start there. On Monday morning, yesterday, a train carrying all these hazardous materials derailed in Pennsylvania, prompting local authorities to evacuate residents from um, the this neighborhood in Pennsylvania out of an abundance of caution. Okay. So this was 16 cars. One of them sprung a leak, and the one that sprung the leak had silicon pellets. And authorities say that that has no threat to the community. However, in other cars, we saw that there were things like degreaser chemical, which the Environmental Protection Agency has deemed a carcinogen. We also saw liquid fertilizer. There were other cars that derailed, they just haven't leaked. Possibly, quite possibly, all of that material is no longer um, usable, which is concerning because some of that was fertilizer, which is already in short supply. So S or CSX Norfolk Southern told um, Fox News Digital, it's a Fox News affiliate, quote, while preliminary reports indicate that the car transporting the hazardous materials involved in the incident, there is no indication of any leaks or spills of that hazardous material, and there is no injuries to the crew of the train. The local fire department responded and declared an evacuation out of an abundance of caution. Okay, now we have Josh Shapiro. Ugh. He said that he's monitoring the situation. Okay. Uh, Now there's hazmat train derailment. I mean, look, if this were to happen in Ukraine, I guarantee our politicians, they'd be there in seconds. And I'm curious how long this is going to take and if there is going to eventually be some sort of leakage or spillage of these hazardous materials. Um, it sounds like the derailment didn't work. There's my conspiracy theory of the day. Why is there constantly derailments happening East Palestine, Ohio? There was hazardous materials that were leaked out into the water supply. People literally were talking like Anthony Fauci, like they had something in their throat. Their throats, their vocal cords were fried up from the hazard breathing in the hazardous chemicals. And there were animals in the forest that were dying. Fish were popping up to the top of the water. Concerning. From Fox News, I am going to be getting into this story here. An 18-year-old military recruit is forced to shower with biological males as part of the Biden administration's transgender policies. And she's been complaining, and she says that she's in a very uncomfortable position and that she's considering resigning from her position, from her early career position as a military recruit. And this is why our numbers are down, folks. This is why we aren't meeting our recruiting goals in the military. I'm going to be digging into that story here coming up on the Morning Buzz. Good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. You know, I have some major concerns about something that is that we're going to talk about tomorrow, hopefully. Um, Now, there's something called a carbon dioxide pipeline. I'm going to talk more deeply about this tomorrow. I'm going to do a deep dive and investigation into what's going on. There's Livingston County Ag Committee. So this is a local government body. They've been talking about the approval and the rezoning to allow this carbon dioxide pipeline. What is a carbon dioxide pipeline? Well, this is a pipeline that I think runs along a pipeline, a natural gas pipeline that already exists. And what this carbon dioxide pipeline theoretically is supposed to do is take carbon from the air and push it, use it, push it down into the earth and use it to squeeze out the gas in the natural gas pipeline. I'm very much breaking this down in the simplest terms. Okay. So, and forgive me if I say something wrong, but I was talking with somebody. Her name is Julie. Hopefully, she's going to join me in studio. This could be huge. There's only a couple of these in the nation. Now, there was a Huffington Post article that I was reading, and it talks about one that was in this small little town in Mississippi, and it's called Gassing, Satarsha, I think it's what it's called, Mississippi, and they started smelling rotten eggs, okay? Then a greenish cloud rolled over Route 433 and settled into the valley surrounding a little town. Within minutes, people were inside the cloud, gasping for air, nauseated, and dazed. 2 dozen individuals were overcome within a few minutes, collapsing in their homes. They needed oxygen. There were people who were paralyzed. People were um, sh- uh, sent to the hospital. Now, this is uh, all because there was a carbon dioxide pipeline that ran through the hills above the town, less than a mile away above the town. So this was a carbon dioxide pipeline, and the Greenweenies want this because they want to avoid fracking, drilling, um, all of that stuff. They want to avoid that. And they think that with these carbon dioxide pipelines, they're going to be able to squeeze more out of the natural gas pipelines and avoid building more natural gas pipelines or avoid drilling. It's a green weenie thing, okay? And they think that it takes carbon out of the air, which it doesn't. So we're possibly looking at one, from what I hear, here in central Illinois. And there's only a couple, I think, in the United States. This might be the only other one. I think there's one in Decatur and one in Mississippi. And the one in Mississippi caused this rotten egg smell, caused people to be nauseated, dazed, rushed to the hospital to get oxygen. There were a dozen individual people died. Um, so this is something that I'm going to throw into the comments. You guys can read this Huffington Post article of all places, right? This is what they shared out with their audience, and I've been reading about this. I would definitely click on this in the comments. I'm not ready to talk about it yet. We're going to have a special guest in studio. I'm going to do some more research today on it, but I think that the pipeline, the carbon pipeline, is going to run from Atlanta through Lincoln, possibly into Springfield. And if anything happens to that community in Atlanta, Lincoln, I'm going to lose it. Okay. And it's very real possibility that people die because of this carbon pipeline, and what they're doing here is very unethical, considering that we already have information about these carbon pipelines and what happens if it doesn't go correctly. So we'll talk about that maybe tomorrow. So just a little tease. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for joining me here on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I'm everywhere. So go ahead, follow us, like the page, follow the page, share this podcast out with your normie friends. Cities929.com is where you can also find the podcast. Now, I do want to tell y'all about Seats for Soldiers. Seats for Soldiers is something that we do every year. It's our 6th annual one, and that's brought to you by SEFCU, 10 Tech Enterprises, Miller Lite, Wilbur Group. We're all gearing up for the 6th annual Seats for Soldiers event, where we help out local veterans here in Central Illinois through the help of Hope for the Warriors, which is a national nonprofit who helps Central Illinois veterans right here. I think last year they helped 30 Central Illinois families, something like that. And we raised $22,000 last year. So this week, I'm going to be live. My show will be live 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., both Thursday and Friday, out at the Corn Crib. So come see me out at the Corn Crib and make a donation. We're going to be broadcasting there for 36 hours straight. And we're going to try to save seats. And the way we save seats, we mark it with an American flag, and that is a designated seat saved for a member of our military. Donations are accepted in person at the Corn Crib, or you can text our Jimmy John's text line. That's seats. Text the word seats, SEATS, to 77,000. Seats to 77,000 to be a part of this amazing event and support people who have served this country. Special thanks to McLean County Asphalt, Tax and Accounting Plus, Ace Hardware, and Four Seasons Health Club. You can make a $5 donation, and that puts a flag on a seat designating that seat saved for a soldier. All right, I do want to get to this story about this military recruit. Speaking of those who serve this wonderful country of ours, this 18-year-old girl is now being forced to shower with biological males as part of his administration's transgender policies. And she's now coming out and she's complaining about being placed in this extremely uncomfortable position. Yeah, showering in front of men sounds pretty uncomfortable if you're a woman. Men you don't know. So the girl is afraid to speak out because speaking out could harm her career. Now, her options here are pretty slim because if she speaks out against this, her career is over. Okay, they're going to call her a bigot. They're going to call her all of these mean names. And really, what she is forced to do here is to resign from her very early career position. And it's believed raising the matter in a complaint could have harmful effects on this new recruit's military career. So she's 18 years old. Imagine being an 18-year-old girl and having to look at a man changing in front of you. So she allegedly sleeps between these two individuals. So I don't know if they're called barracks or something like that. It's like similar to dormitories. Whoever has served before, throw it in the comment section or text me 309-451-9299 if there's a specific name for where new recruits sleep during boot camp. But she has to sleep between two of these people who are supposedly changing from male to female. She also has to shower with these individuals, and she has reported significant distress about this matter. The individuals housed with this 18-year-old girl have been going through hormone changes, chemical interventions to try to change their gender. But they haven't had reassignment surgery, so their genitalia is all fully intact. She has to sleep in between these people, and she also has to shower with them. So Mike Rounds, he's a Republican out of South Dakota. He heard about the matter from an attorney general of the South Dakota National Guard. He said that he contacted our office, the attorney general, contacted our office, very concerned about information he had received from this recruit. The respect that this young recruit should have received, and the privacy that she should have. She is being deprived of privacy, of respect. And get this, the Pentagon, they released a statement to Fox News Digital, who has the exclusive story here on this. They said that the Department of Defense policy is that service members must be treated with dignity and respect. We would encourage any troop who is feeling uncomfortable or has concerns about privacy in shared spaces to work through their chain of command. So they're not going to change the transgender policy. They're going to force this girl to throw her entire military career away because of bringing this up. There's no way that she brings this up to the officer in command. We know that there are a bunch of woke military generals out there who are going to make her life a living hell and call her bigot, call her a homophobe or whatever. This is why we're not meeting our recruitment goals. You hear stories like this, and we are in a recruitment crisis. And that's not me saying that. That's everybody in the United States saying that. That's the very own U.S. military saying they're in a recruitment crisis. And it's because of Joe Biden's woke agenda that we're now seeing come down via executive order. So he's not getting this through Congress, transgender policies in the U.S. military. He's doing this all executive order, which is crucial information. There's a growing concern about the U.S. military falling behind in its recruitment goals. I've got the recent numbers here, folks. The Army is expected to end up with 15,000 recruits short, 15,000 recruits short of its 65,000 goal. U.S. military chiefs continue to express concern that if recruiting numbers don't improve, that the United States will not be able to face the next great power threat nor deal with the two conflicts happening at the same time. We've got Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan. The House Oversight Committee. Now, I do want to shift gears here, but I'm going to have to take a break. There's more information about Hunter Biden and his tax crimes because we have an FBI supervisor special agent coming out and confirming what this IRS whistleblower's testimony was alleging, that the DOJ has been working to cover up Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, his tax crimes. I've got that story here coming up next. See, but here's the thing, Ezekiel, like, I know you agree about the carbon pipeline, but the Keystone pipeline, the carbon pipeline is what is the issue. There is no evidence, no modern evidence that suggests that something like the Keystone pipeline would hurt people or cause people to go to the hospital. We have several, not enough, of these natural gas pipelines, right? Because these people are so anti-fracking and so anti-drilling for this natural gas. And they're anti-energy, to be honest with you, because they're not for nuclear, they're not for hydroelectric, they're not for alternatives other than wind and solar, which just aren't feasible. I've got a solar story here locally that is just going to blow your mind here, Ezekiel. Tesla, there's a whistleblower from within Tesla who has found that they are not willing to recall a specific connector with these solar panels that is causing them to catch fire. And we're putting these solar panels on top of things like libraries, Walmarts, schools. The list is endless. And it's a big, big problem. But these people are so hell bent on energy supply from wind and solar. That's all they care about. So they're anti-energy because wind and solar do not produce as much as nuclear, hydroelectric, gas, obviously. I agree with you. Yes, the carbon pipeline is bad. This is very bad. And I'm sorry, but the World Economic Forum and Democrats love carbon pipelines. Okay, it's true. And what this carbon pipeline is going to do, if coming here to central Illinois, what it could do is gas out people and cause them to go to the hospital, cause them to have COPD, and cause them to die. We're talking about death here coming to central Illinois. That was going to, that's going to, this is what happened in Mississippi. So we have precedent when we install these carbon pipelines, what that does. And what the carbon pipeline is supposed to do is supposed to squeeze more natural gas out of things like the Keystone pipeline. And they run these carbon pipelines along Keystone pipeline or natural gas pipelines. And that is a very bad idea. Now, fracking, drilling, more natural gas. Okay. Yes. I'm not a big fan, right, of the big oil, right? There is all kinds of things that our government has done as far as big oil. Now they're just kind of changing and now they're doing wind and solar. We've seen this time and time again. And we go and we fight these oil wars and yeah, and we, you know, get these other countries to give us our oil, Saudi Arabia, Iran, all these different places. And that's bad for the environment. Keystone Pipeline would have been clean. We would be making our own energy here in America, so that way we didn't have to cart these big old barrels of oil across the sea using more energy to fuel the boats that drive that oil over. It would have been a clean pipeline. So saying that the Keystone Pipeline is a bad idea is okay, but the carbon pipeline and the Keystone Pipeline, totally different things. And the carbon pipeline could kill people. The Keystone was not going to kill people. Okay. Do have to come back here shortly, but let's get to TK. Had a trans woman, born male, drill sergeant when I went through basic in 2020. Wow. It was incredibly weird. They skirted the line of decency rules. For example, at night, the male drill sergeant could not go in, let's see, into, I don't know if this got cut off, a female bay if him by himself without a female. The drill sergeant would go into both male and female bays at night alone, even to the point where she, uh, it would come into our male bay at night and yell, ooh, at us for sleeping shirtless and say that it was sexually harassing her. Wow, that's incredible. TK is joining us here on the comments section of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You can find me there. I'm live streaming, and coming up, I do want to talk about this whistleblower. He's an FBI whistleblower, on top of all of these IRS whistleblowers who have come out against Hunter Biden, the DOJ, saying that the DOJ covered up Hunter Biden's tax crimes. Now, this House Oversight Committee has released this bombshell report, and it revealed this special agent in the FBI is confirming this IRS's whistleblower's testimony, alleging that the DOJ worked to cover up the Hunter Biden crimes. And there's a story here that was given by the FBI special agent who was assigned to the FBI Wilmington, Delaware office. And oh boy, this story sounds shady. Very shady. So I'm going to be giving you that story here coming up in just a little bit. But first, let's get to the comments section. TK joining me. Now, this is weird. He said, we had a transgender woman, born male. So a trans woman born male, a drill sergeant, when I went through basic in 2020. It was incredibly weird. They skirted the line of decency rules. For example, at night, the male drill sergeant could not go into a female bay by himself without a female drill sergeant. But this trans drill sergeant would go into both male and female bays at night alone, even to the point where she would come into our male bay at night and start to yell at us for sleeping shirtless and saying that it was sexually harassing her. They were completely mentally ill. Google drill sergeant Kate Cole. They came out very publicly. So Kate Cole is this drill sergeant, and I guess I would have to look her up, but he said that he had experience with this drill sergeant through his basic training, and he said that this born a male, acted like a female, would come in to the male bay and start yelling at other military members, to the point where she would come in and yell at us for sleeping shirtless. Well, that's bizarre. It's just a mess, and I feel for you, TK. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I mean, you sign your name on that dotted line. You deserve respect. You deserve privacy. And clearly, the Pentagon, clearly, the Department of Defense doesn't care about any of that. And I mean, that story is shocking. I will Google Kate Cole now that you've told me about it. I will be back here on the other side. Let's talk about the former supervisory special agent who is coming out against the Department of Justice next. Wow. I'm shocked. TK, I'm so glad that you shared that and you're not being quiet about that. That takes a lot of strength to come forward and to say that that happened to you in the military. I believe that that stuff happens all of the time. And that's why we're like, there has to be something more to this 15,000 recruits short. That's how much we're short of our 65,000 goal. And we have military chiefs, like people, high ranking officers, who are saying that they're concerned that if we don't meet our recruiting goals, we're not going to be able to defend ourselves against the next great power, whether that be Russia, China. We won't be able to deal with these two conflicts, Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan. So wow, incredibly thankful that you shared that story with our listeners here. Now, what I want to do is talk a little bit about that FBI special agent who is coming out against Hunter Biden and the DOJ. But first, let's talk about it. RFK, I mean, the smears against him are now coming out full force because Democrat leadership, they're terrified of his rise in the polls. I think we're at like 60-30. Joe Biden 30%. I mean, that's huge considering the superdelegate system and the Democrat Party and how they do things here as a party. So that's huge for a non incumbent or an incumbent president to get 60% of the Democrat vote. He's on every media channel, RFK Jr., and he's doing every podcast he can. And his message is really gaining traction faster than ever. And I think that my brother is actually going to be voting for him in the primary to try to do some sort of operation type chaos. I can't bring myself to vote for a Democrat ever. I love RFK. Don't like everything that he stands for. I definitely vote for people who are anti-baby killing. And I can't bring myself to vote for somebody who, like, I just can't even do it even as a form of Operation Chaos. But RFK, he's really gaining some traction here with his message. I also want to talk about this Bloomberg writer. He's blasting the film Sound of Freedom, and he has a questionable past. And he's tweeting things about children that are quite disgusting. So I don't know. I'm going to take a stab in the dark. I think the reason why this guy doesn't like the film is because of his past and because he is a spokesperson for a MAP advocacy group. M is for minor. A is for attracted. P is for, well, you get the gist. Pedophiles are essentially stigmatized, is what this guy says. This Bloomberg writer, he's a journalismer, and he had this to say about the film. He said, critics have linked the film to pro-Trump QAnon conspiracy cults. They've also been startled by its mainstream success. But the truth is that the conspiratorial right and Hollywood default aren't that much different. So he's got a scathing review out there about the movie Sound of Freedom. But let's dig into this guy's past because it turns out that he is pro-pedophile. I'm not going to use their newspeak language. It is not minor attracted person. I don't care what kind of connotations the word pedophile has because pedophiles are pedophiles. And I like what our friend here, oh gosh, what did he say? I think it was RT. RT said, you need to castrate them. Yes. Totally agree with that. Now, Ezekiel, you're bringing up this carbon pipeline, Keystone Pipeline. Now, I said that I wanted to share with you a story here locally in regards to a solar panel malfunction that happened at the Olympia High School, and it caused a fire to ignite. So there's a Tesla whistleblower that we spoke to, and he's speaking out against these defective electrical connectors. Now, his name is Stephen Hinks, and he's been speaking out against this for a long time. Now, he worked with Toyota for a number of years as a quality division manager before he moved to this company called Solar City, which Solar City was acquired by Tesla. Okay, so he worked for Tesla / Solar City in 2016, and he took a position as a quality engineer. So he was a quality manager, and he became aware of some defective electrical connectors in 2017 of December. The connectors problems could lead to solar panels catching on fire and increased fire risks to the company's solar installations. So, solar panels catching on fire because of these defective connectors. He raised some safety concerns about this, and he later learned that Solar City slash Tesla had been aware of the problem for years, actually. So then he brought forward his concerns to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and the U.S. Product Safety Commission. They didn't do anything. He was fired, and he remains concerned about these solar panels being installed between 2015 and 2018. He also remains concerned about these connectors that were created between those time periods, and they're just out there. There's no recall issue, nothing. And as a result, the clock continues to tick, and no one knows what solar installations are using these connections made to catch fire next. I mean, first it was the Olympia High School, which he says was very likely. He says it's most likely that's what caused the fire at the Olympia High School. Now, there's been Walmart fires. There's been a fire in Farmington. There was a fire at a Boys and Girls Club, a library. I mean, this is just ongoing. Um, and it's a shame that Unit 5, the school district, has approved some more solar panels. I hope that they do their due diligence and they um, contact maybe even Steve Hanks about the solar panels and have him come take a look at it. Why not? Just when I thought things couldn't get weirder, I found this morning. It's an animated, gender neutral Swedish coconut, and they use the they them pronouns. And look, they're coming for your children through this viral, gender neutral Swedish coconut. And apparently, the coconut is a kindergartner and has what is called a dingaling in the song, and a butterfly. So he has both. Um, it's a bizarre song, but it's gone viral. I mean, there's thousands of views on this thing, and it should concern you as a parent that this is going around social media, TikTok. Right now, I don't think that it's an actual kids program. Um, I think right now it's just a kid's song. Let's take a listen to the song and pay close attention to the lyrics of this song. You can watch the song and the video that corresponds to the song on the live stream on the Morning Buzz, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble. We're everywhere. Let's take a listen.
One gave birth to me. I'm a no gender sweet. It was the kindergarten lady that said to me. It was the kindergarten lady that said to me that I'm not a boy and I'm not a girl. I'm a coconut. I am the coconut. Oh, daddy yelled to me, kid, I'm a ding dong guy. Yes, daddy yelled to me, mom's got a butterfly. You got a willy or weakness. I cooked it a flower. Yes, daddy yelled to me, we got genders, you see. It was the kindergarten lady that said to me. It was the kindergarten lady that said to me that I'm not a boy. I'm not a girl, I'm a coconut. I am the coconut. And one
Oh, I'm nauseated. I'm so sorry I had to play that for you. I'm literally nauseated. So the way the lyrics go, let me just read them here for you. No one gave birth to me. I'm not a gender Swede. It was the kindergarten lady who said to me, it was the kindergarten lady that said to me, I'm not a boy. I'm not a girl. And then he goes into this story, this coconut, this singing coconut goes into the story about how his dad yelled at him. And he said that, some people have a ding dong, some people have a butterfly, sometimes you have a willy or a wiener, sometimes you have a cookie or a flower. And this is a children's song. This is clearly targeted towards children. Uh, it's a cartoon and it's a viral song. Be aware of it as a parent. Um, I hope and I can't emphasize enough how much I'm begging anyone to tell me that this is a hoax or that I'm missing the satire and that this was created by somebody as a joke. The reason they target children is because kids are naive, they're impressionable, and they're gullible. This morning, I watched that. I still can't get the taste of bile out of my mouth. It's overwhelming. It's disgusting. I can't believe that they did this. I will be talking about this corporate journalismer. He's from Bloomberg. He's a Bloomberg writer, Washington Post writer, writes for The Atlantic. He's like some sort of leftist freelance writer. And he's blasting The Sound of Freedom. And I think there's a reason why he's blasting The Sound of Freedom. And he's being very critical of the film. And he's calling it a QAnon conspiracy. There's a reason why. It's because he's got a background that is questionable. Let's say that he's got a questionable background, and he's the spokesperson for the MAP advocacy group. So MAP, M is for minor, A is for attracted, P is, well, you get the gist. Person, minor attracted person. Yikes! And they don't call them pedophiles. This advocacy group, they call them minor attracted persons. Yikes, big yikes. So we're going to get to that story. But like I said, and I've been teasing it all morning, I'm going to get to it. So the House over this FBI whistleblower who has confirmed the IRS whistleblower's testimony, alleging that the DOJ has worked to cover up Hunter Biden's tax crimes. Okay. So Republican Senator James Comer, he's the chairman of this House Oversight and Accountability Committee who has been investigating the Biden family. He released a statement condemning the Biden Justice Department and vowed to pursue every avenue available that will lead to accountability. That's what we need, accountability. So there is this IRS whistleblower. His name is Gary. And he told Congress, he goes, look, I'm blowing the whistle here because the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office, the Department of Justice, tax, and all kinds of taxing departments, Justice of Tax, they all gave preferential treatment to Hunter Biden in this tax fraud case. So here is Gary at the time talking about, or recently talking about how much money Hunter Biden received because he didn't pay his taxes and what kind of money he's been getting from these foreign countries in his business dealings. Follow the money. Here's Gary talking about Hunter Biden's controversial income. Here we go.
The possibility that there's more information out there we didn't find, but based on all of the financial records that we did find, they've been analyzed. And it was around 8.3 million he received.
From who?
They came from China, from CEFC, came from Ukraine, and from Romania. And even the Burisma money, and it's kind of a aspect that we didn't get into, but the 2014 and 2015 tax years when the Burisma money was coming in. I mean, to this day, there's still around $400,000 of unreported income from Burisma in 2014. Hunter Biden was told by his partner, Eric Schwerin, that he needed to amend his returns, and he never did. So DC U.S. Attorney's Office declining those charges, David Weiss requesting special counsel authority and being denied, and then the statute of limitations then expires in November, December of 2022. So those years are gone. And there's no way to recoup the money from that Burisma income.
Wowza. So there's Gary. That's the IRS whistleblower. They found it was around $8.3 million that Hunter had received. He didn't report it. That's tax crime. You can't not report your income, okay? And he said that money came from places like China, CEFC, came from Ukraine, came from Romania. So now, fast forward to today, the breaking news, this explosive report, an FBI agent is saying the same thing that the IRS whistleblower is. But get this, this is what they're saying. The FBI special agent, he said that he was assigned to the FBI Wilmington office out of Delaware, and the Biden criminal investigation confirmed key portions of the IRS whistleblower's testimony. So the night before the interview of Hunter Biden, both Secret Service headquarters and the Biden transition team were tipped off about a plan to interview. So they wanted to interview Hunter Biden regarding this, regarding the tax fraud, regarding the money coming from CEFC, Ukraine, Romania. They wanted to sit down and interview him, the FBI. But somebody tipped them off. They tipped off the Secret Service headquarters, the Biden transition team. This was in December of 2020, the transition team. Now, on the day of the Hunter Biden interview, federal agents were told to stand by and to not approach Hunter Biden, and that they had to wait for his call. They had to wait for Hunter Biden to call them. As a result of the change in plans, the IRS and the FBI criminal investigators never got the interview that they were supposed to get from Hunter Biden as part of this investigation. The Justice Department's efforts to cover the Bidens reveal that we have a two-tiered justice system, and it sickens me, it sickens you, it sickens the American people. Like I said, December 8th, 2020, Shapley, Gary, the IRS whistleblower, and the FBI special agent, who I don't think is named at this point, were notified that they were not allowed to approach Hunter Biden's house and instead would have to wait to near his residence until Hunter Biden contacted them. So this December 8th, 2020, the former FBI special agent told the committee investigators that he had never been told to wait outside and to wait to be contacted by the subject of an investigation. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. You don't wait for the criminals to call you and to say, yeah, it's okay for you to come interview me and for you to come ask me questions about my crimes. That never happens. I know you watch TV, right? In addition to Hunter Biden's tax crimes, for which he was recently awarded that sweetheart deal after pleading guilty, after all of the statute of limitations was up, to where they couldn't charge him with more substantial crimes. Hunter and his father, President Joe Biden, are currently facing separate investigations here for multiple alleged shady foreign business dealings with Ukraine and China. So there still is some ongoing investigations in regards to bribery. How much money did Joe Biden get in bribes? And he and Joe Biden. So this is big deal, big bombshell report. I mean, you have a couple of IRS whistleblowers, an FBI whistleblower. The dominoes are falling, as I like to say. Now, I do want to hit on this story. I teased it earlier. Corporate journalismers, they don't like the movie Sound of Freedom, folks. They hate it. They are hell bent on creating content here that attacks the movie The Sound of Freedom. It's about child sex trafficking, and it's based on a true story. If you haven't seen it, you need to. I can get you a ticket. Just text me at 309-451-9299 if you can't afford one. Now, this is based on a true story. And because a lot of conservatives are happy with this important movie, and we're happy with the fact that it's kicking Hollywood's butt, the media hates it, and they're actually mortified by how much money the movie is making. The latest example is this review from Bloomberg. So there's this Bloomberg writer, and he writes this critique of the movie. His name is Noah Berlatsky. And he says that many critics have linked the movie Sound of Freedom to the pro-Trump QAnon conspiracy cult. They've been startled by its mainstream success. But the truth is, the conspiratorial right and Hollywood default aren't that different. Which is why perhaps our polity has such difficulty rejecting QAnon, Trump, and fascism. So he says that there's people within his own ranks who have a difficult time rejecting QAnon conspiracy. Okay. So there was an independent reporter who did the work on this. His name is Andy No, and he found some interesting things about our friend Noah and his background. So this might give us some insight into why he hates the movie and doesn't like the movie, The Sound of Freedom. So who is Noah? Well, Noah, he's a spokesperson for the MAP advocacy group. M is for minor, A is for attracted, and P is for person. Minor attracted people. That's what they call pedophiles, these extreme deranged leftists like Noah. In fact, I have a tweet of his. It says pedophiles are essentially stigmatized. Certain people get designated as deviants and people hate them. There's a YouTuber who talks about this guy, and apparently she has had some issues with him in the past. She's a YouTuber. Her name is Shu. She goes by Shu on Head. She's a pretty interesting gal, but she talks about this guy in detail and how he had actually gone after her in years past. Let's take a listen to her and her story regarding this Noah Bloomberg writer.
A stigmatized group. Certain people get designated as deviants. People hate them. Yes. And parents are tyrants. Parent is an oppressive class, like rich people or white people. He also wrote a few blogs on the Prostasia website. Child sex workers' biggest threat, the police. Okay, let's back up for a second. There's no such thing as a child sex worker, Noah. That's called a human trafficking victim. Then I was thinking to myself, why does this Noah dude's account look so familiar? Turns out, he's the fucking journalist who got mad at me like a year ago for criticizing the Netflix movie Cuties.
So there you have it, folks. So he criticized her over that movie Cuties, and Cuties is essentially a film where children dress up as strippers and strip down a runway. And it's a Netflix show. I highly recommend you go watch it. Not children, right? Go watch it for research purposes. You can watch just a snippet of it, and you will understand what that film is about. And he criticized her for saying that that movie was pedophilia. And he said that she was bigot and blah, 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 homophobe, blah, blah, blah. Point is, this film had a budget of $14.5 million. And the film managed to tell this very important, sad, I wouldn't go watch it again because it's one of those films where you only have to watch it once. And it's an important story. And it got, I mean, there's films that have 10 times that budget. And they are not earning nearly as much as what Sound of Freedom earned. I mean, in just the pre-sales alone, they got $10 million. So Sound of Freedom, it's a genuine, it has a genuine core of righteousness, I would say, than most call to action films. And this is a dramatic film, and yes, it's painful to watch. It takes pain to show the real problem facing children today. And it does all this while giving a heartfelt story, giving us more of a heartfelt story than I would say, than Hollywood has given us in years. Years. The media is lining up to hate it for whatever reason. 309-451-9299. Brittney Griner. God. I know you're like, oh, Kat, what is she doing this time? Well, she kind of made a slam dunk, and Sports Illustrated went completely bananas for Brittney Griner. They're still trying to make the WNBA relevant, and they're trying to make it a thing, even though it's not a thing. So I'm going to be back. Sports Illustrated, they lost it because Brittney Griner dunked a basketball. Kind of. I've got the story here next on the Morning Buzz. So in just a couple of hours, folks, if you live in the state of Illinois, go ahead, throw that in the comments section. Throw it in the comments. In the state of Illinois, the Illinois Supreme Court is going to either say that the Safety Act, aka Purge Law, is unconstitutional. They can say that. They can pass the hockey puck down the rink there, down the ice. They can pass it along and not do anything and not rule on it today. Or they can enact it and they can say, yes, this is constitutional. And if that happens, we are in purge. We are in the purge. You're going to see criminals out on the street in droves, in droves. The problem with the Safety Act, now I don't know what is going to happen in regards to what happened in Kankakee County. So in Kankakee County, they ruled that you cannot have felonies go undetained, like murder in cold blood or like arson. These things were under the Safety Act deemed non-detainable offenses. Now they changed that part of it, and that went into effect here from January of 2023 to all the way till now, July of 2023. It is now, it is not possible for you to go commit a felony and not be detained under the Safety Act. You will be detained, and you will possibly be denied cash bail. Now, what could happen here is that all of it goes away. Uh, there's portions of the Safety Act that are still being implemented in Illinois, like ending cash bail and things like that. Chicago essentially doesn't have a cash bail system. And we know what goes on in Chicago as far as crime goes. But today's ruling is, hey, if this was ruled against, then it goes away entirely. So right now, the way the Safety Act stands, misdemeanors are considered non-detainable offenses. So if you commit some sort of misdemeanor, then you are not able to be detained, or you have to be let go right away, and you don't get through the cash bail system. So a part of misdemeanor crimes, domestic battery is a misdemeanor. And this is so against the Victims' Rights Act. This is so anti-victim. It's not even funny. The judge should be able to determine if your domestic abuser is unsafe and determine what bail amount needs to be set for this individual, whether that be a high bail, whether that bail be revoked. That is something that should be left up to the judge, and the judge should be able to determine conditions for that release. However, the Safety Act takes it out of the prosecutor's hands, takes it out of the judge's hands, and it is pro-criminal. And you are not able to be detained if you domestically abuse somebody. You are let go. You can be arrested, but you have to come back to your court date, maybe. It's a purge law, and it's all being considered today at about 9 o'clock. So in about 30 minutes. So this is a big deal, folks. So be on the lookout for that. I like this. Easy. He says, I live in Illinois. Illinois sucks. JB sucks. Chicago sucks. Yes. Yesterday I talked extensively about a fellow. His name, I don't know if I have his name. We didn't get his name, but he was a God, what do they call them? Peacekeeper. So peacekeepers in the city of Chicago, essentially what they are, they're guidance counselors with vests, but they're not trained. They are former convicts a lot of the time, and they serve for about 10 years, usually for some sort of gang-related crime, a murder, a felony assault, something like that, to that effect. And then they get out after about 10 years. And then what JB does, and what Brandon Johnson have done through this program, they try to train these former convicts to become guidance counselors and to go out there with yellow vests on. And they go out there and they have these yellow vests, and they try to reason with the criminals who are shooting people up. Now, there was one case where there was a gentleman. He was a peacekeeper, and he got paid $200 a day. These people get paid with taxpayer money, $200 a day, something like that, to go out there and play guidance counselor with these violent criminals. And then they themselves are criminals. Like, they're ex-criminals. They got out of jail, but they're still criminals. And this story, I forget his name. It's just, you can't keep up with it. But he drug an innocent bystander. He was stopped at a traffic light. He drug him out of his car, beat him so bad to where he needed facial reconstruction surgery. A peacekeeper that we were paying $200 a day to go out there and play guidance counselor. The guidance counselor did that to just some guy. And then there's this story about two of these peacekeepers who were shot at. One of the guys that were shot at had an ankle monitor because he had a pending felony gun charge on his record, which could have been pled down already. So I don't know if this guy murdered somebody, but he had a felony gun charge on under his belt, and he was on an electronic monitoring device. And it turns out while this guy is getting paid by taxpayer money to go out there, play guidance counselor with all of these violent criminals in Chicago, he's a violent criminal himself. And he had an electronic monitoring device to prove it. And he's under a pending charge. So we're putting criminals in vests to go fight the crime. It's insanity. Brittney Griner, my God. I don't know what the heck is wrong with Sports Illustrated, but they went nuts. Like, they went bananas over Brittney Griner's slam dunk. Now, I'm going to roast her a bit here and Sports Illustrated because I know the basics around the game of basketball and I know basically how it's played. And I don't know why they went berserk over this play, over this slam dunk that she made. We're going to be talking about that. Plus, I do want to talk a little bit about this story coming out of Chicago. I covered it a little bit yesterday, but I was telling my live stream listeners about it on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble. You guys can see me there. The Morning Buzz is on all social media platforms, so you can give us a like, follow, share, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe. It helps us out. Now, the problem here with these peacekeepers in Chicago is that these peacekeepers are former convicts. And when I say former, I mean pending convicts. So there was this guy who was a peacekeeper getting paid by taxpayer money. It's a state program that Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson cooked up in their little lab that I'd imagine, their legislation laboratory that looks to pay criminals, ex-criminals typically, to go out there in a vest and play guidance counselor with other criminals. Okay. So one of these vested peacekeepers was on an electronic monitoring device for a felony gun charge, and he was shot in the leg trying to peacekeep. You can't make this stuff up, folks. We are throwing criminals out there to play guidance counselor with other criminals. And he has a pending gun charge, like a felony gun charge. And we're paying this guy to go out there $200 a day. It's like $1 million program. It's insanity. Do want to get to this WNBA. I don't know why they still want the WNBA to happen. Female sports fans don't care about the WNBA. People don't care about the WNBA. It makes no money. But the media just flops covering over the WNBA. They are just drooling over the WNBA, and they try to say that it's like LeBron James, and they're like, oh yeah, look at Brittney Griner, and they take the most minimal skills, and all of these skills are praised. They're like, yes, queen, slay girl, you've got this, and they do this to within an inch of their life. Like, it depends on the world depends on them celebrating these minimal skills in the WNBA. Because it does. The league, they want to make the league seem like it's watchable or enjoyable. That's why these media people drool over WNBA stars like Brittney Griner. And in this recent clip that I'm going to play for you in just a second, Sports Illustrated, they are drooling over this. They tweeted this out, a clip of Brittney Griner doing, and the commentators in this, that's what really makes me want to laugh. Before we play the clip, what I need you to understand is a few finer points of the game, okay? And you might not know this. You know when the player dribbles the ball or bounces the ball, that's called dribbling, okay? Bounces the ball, that's called dribbling. And you can't move around the court unless that ball is dribbling. If you walk with the ball and you don't dribble, that's called traveling. I know. Hard stuff. And if somebody were to travel, that's a foul, and the referee has to blow the whistle. Okay. I think we all understand that. But apparently, these commentators did not understand that. Let's take a listen here to the commentators just losing it, going bananas for Brittney Griner because she made some sort of slam dunk, but she really didn't because she should have been called for a foul. Let's take a listen.
You will see this weekend than that. There it is. BG is back. You will see this weekend than that. There it is. BG is back.
It's like so obvious. It's almost like she was at half court and she ran with the ball and like she didn't even really dunk it, folks. Okay. She kind of just placed the ball. She's ginormous. Okay. She just kind of placed the ball in the hoop. And for those of you who were on the live stream, you can see that she did not dribble. She traveled. I mean, I'm no sports gal, but I can see when somebody travels. And Brittney Griner knows some things about traveling. She's the basketball player who was arrested in Russia because she traveled to Russia with some weed. And she is the person who, by the Biden administration, traded for a guy called the Merchant of Death. So Russia gets the Merchant of Death. We get Brittney Griner. And we could have gotten a Marine who is also imprisoned in Russia. But Brittney Griner, the reason why we chose Brittney Griner, folks, the United States did, she checks off more than one boxes on the left's preferred marginalized checklist. She's Black, a woman, and a lesbian. So she checks off 3 boxes. That's why we got her. We traded the Merchant of Death for her. She better watch out. Last time she traveled like that, she ended up in a Russian prison. I love the punchlines here. Here we go. Here's another one. At least she learned to travel without drugs in her purse. I'm making myself laugh here, folks. There's so much traveling going on in this clip that it's technically supposed to be regulated by the Department of Justice. Actually, she might not want that. Her traveling, I hope that it doesn't get regulated by the Department of Justice because the Department of Transportation. I'm messing up here. Department of Transportation. The Department of Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg is incompetent and he's a yutz. And Brittney Griner likely would be derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, if she were to be regulated by the Department of Transportation. Oh, sick burn. Roasted here on the Morning Buzz. Speaking of roasted, I've got my coffee here and I roasted some coffee beans this morning. Are you drinking a cup of coffee? Text in 309-451-9299. How do you take your coffee? Just out of curiosity. I'll be back. I've got a nice news story for us. I like bringing you those amidst all the crazy. I've got a good news story that's going to just warm your heart. Mom donating gifts to a hospital for her daughter's birthday. So I've got all of this and more ahead on the Morning Buzz. Haha. Hey, good morning, folks. Thanks so much. I'm going to get to some of your texts here and comments. I so do appreciate you tuning in. I was just thinking if you could dumb that explanation down a little bit more, it might be on the level of Kamala Harris' speech. Bouncing the ball is when it goes up and down. And traveling is when you put one foot in front of the other and move. Yes. So I had to explain dribbling to you guys because apparently the people at Sports Illustrated and the media acolytes who are obsessed with Brittney Griner and they're so desperate to try to make the WNBA a thing. It's not a thing. Nobody cares about the WNBA. Right? It's just not a thing. And they don't seem to understand the definition of dribbling. So I had to dumb this down for them so that they could understand that Brittney Griner did not make a slam dunk because she traveled. She committed a foul. But they would never say that because it's Brittney Griner. Here is a text message. There is currently a transgender in the McLean County Jail who is isolated from the general population for safety. Interesting. I don't know. I know who this is. And I know the story, but I did not know he was isolated from the general population. He claims, I think, to be a woman. That comes from Ryan Mack. Um, Thanks for the awareness on the Olympia High School solar system fire. I so do appreciate you texting in and giving us an appreciation on that. Yes, we need to raise awareness about the Olympia High School fire. There are electrical connectors in these solar panels that are defective. There was a whistleblower who worked for Solar City and for Tesla. He was a quality manager. And they made these solar panels with these defective connectors, and they need to issue a recall. That's what needs to happen. And before Unit 5 or anybody else approves of these things getting on top of the rooftop of where our children learn, I think we need to, I don't know, check this out. They need to do some more diligence, um, due diligence on these solar panels. So I appreciate the text there, Steven. Um, Now let's get to another one. Hey, criminal, you could be less criminal and get a yellow vest like me if you just put down the gun. Hey, criminal, you could be less criminal and get a yellow vest like me if you just put down the gun. Yeah. So this is insanity. It's millions of dollars too. That's what really pisses me off about this. And I don't cuss, folks, but it really enrages me because people are dying and it's not even safe for these peacekeepers to go out there. So they're ex-criminals. And I wouldn't doubt that a lot of these ex-criminals who have these vests on to go play guidance counselor with other criminals, I wouldn't doubt that they still have some sort of connection to gangs, some sort of. So throwing these guys out there in these yellow vests, even if they are, say they're completely reformed, say they're good guys now and they're doing this because they want to reform the community or blah blah blah. This is dangerous. Okay, they're not giving, from what I understand, I don't think that these people have guns. I'm not too sure about that. They might have guns, they might not. I don't know if the people in the yellow vest have guns, but I know that this is supposed to be a program that doesn't use force to take down the criminal, but rather talk with the criminal. You know, the whole, oh, your mom didn't hold you enough when you were a kid. Aw, and this is why you're the way you are. We've all got stuff, okay? We've all got baggage. We've all got sin. We've all got things that carry with us into our adult life. But not all of us commit violent, heinous crimes like, oh, I don't know, shooting somebody in the face and murdering them. Yes, a peacekeeper did, in fact, serve 10 years for that, got out, became a peacekeeper. Then, who could have guessed it? He pulled out a random guy from a car and beat him so bad to where his face had to be plastically, he had to have plastic surgery to reconstruct it. Like, that's what's going on in Chicago. And it's like, if we can't fix this, we can't even begin to talk about things in Illinois, like to reform infrastructure. Right? If we can't get criminals off of the streets and we're putting criminals back onto the street in the form of some sort of police officer, then we are doomed as a state and as a country because wha- public safety is number one. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. I so do appreciate it. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Rumble. You guys can find me, follow me, give it a like, a share, and subscribe. Now, earlier I was telling you about a couple of offenders, and they were peacekeepers. Okay, folks. So these two uh, peacekeepers were shot at in Chicago over the weekend, including one that was already wearing an electronic monitoring device, a bracelet, because he had a pending felony gun case. So, two Chicago men were shot while working as peacekeepers. What's a peacekeeper, Kat? Well, a peacekeeper is somebody who gets paid about $200 a day via taxpayer dollars. It's a statewide program that Governor J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson worked on in their legislation laboratory, and they cooked it up. And what it does, it takes reformed convicts, I guess, or people, volunteers, I don't know, a group of people out of the jail system. They get out of prison and then they can become peacekeepers. And what this does, it gives them a vest. They get the vest, they get the $200 a day. You go out and you play guidance counselor for these other criminals. You sit the criminals down, you say, your mom didn't hug you enough. I'm sorry to hear about that. Tell me more about that. That's what these peacekeepers are trying to do. Okay. That's what the program is all about. And they get paid $200 a day to do it on your dime. But a lot of these peacekeepers come from very shady backgrounds. One guy got shot over the weekend because, and he had a monitoring bracelet on, and these men were shot about a block from where another peacekeeper helped beat and rob a motorist in May. So I talked about that story back in May. There was a peacekeeper who was wearing a yellow vest, getting paid to go out there and play guidance counselor. And he served, I think, 10 years in prison for murdering somebody. And what this guy did was pulled a motorist out of the car at a traffic stop, at a stoplight, and he robbed him and he beat him so bad that Chicago authorities said, yeah, this guy's has been beaten so bad that his face needs reconstruction surgery. That's who these peacekeepers are. Just because you have a yellow vest doesn't mean that you're keeping the community safe. And they're pulling from prisons. They're pulling from the shadiest of places to put these yellow vests on people. It's insanity. And this guy in Chicago, he was currently wearing an electronic monitoring device. This is a peacekeeper program. This is their solution. This is Governor J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson's solution to the crime that is running rampant in Chicago. Also, this just in, Chicago is the #1 city for rat infestation. So, and also Champaign is up there. I think they rank number 37. I'm going insane. All right, I do want to get to this story. I talked about this in the 7 o'clock hour, but I think it's important to bring this up again. The military girl, she's 18 years old and she's a female, and she is actually considering resigning, which is just so sad, after she's been forced to shower with trans women with full genitalia. So these are men pretending to be women. Trans woman means men pretending to be women. So this female military recruit, she's 18. She's complained about this. She said that she's extremely uncomfortable and she's afraid to speak out because speaking out could harm her career. And this is all leaked to Fox News. And she believed that if she were to raise the matter in a complaint, it could harm her early career position in the military. Her options are very slim here, folks. She has to resign. If she's that uncomfortable, she has to resign, because if she were to bring this to a commanding officer, I mean, she's going to be called bigoted. She's going to be called homophobe, blah, 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 blah. So she has to sleep between these two individuals who are changing from male to female. And she also has to shower in front of these individuals. And she says that causes significant distress to her. These people are being housed with this 18-year-old girl, and they are having chemical interventions to try to change their gender. So these two individuals are taking hormones, but without having to pay or without having this gender reassignment surgery. They haven't gone through with that yet. Their genitalia, it is fully intact, and she has to shower with these people. So a senator out of South Dakota, his name is Mike Rounds, and he heard about the matter through the Attorney General of the South Dakota National Guard. So she contacted this guy, the Attorney General of the National Guard, and Rounds says here he had contacted my office concerned about the information he had received from this female recruit, the 18-year-old. The respect that this young recruit should have received in the privacy that she should have had, she's being deprived of it right now in our military. It's disgraceful. And then we've got Fox News Digital asking for a statement from the Pentagon. The Pentagon then says, The Department of Defense policy is that service members must be treated with dignity and respect. And we would encourage any troop who is feeling uncomfortable or has concerns about privacy in shared spaces to work through their chain of command. So they are tying her hands. She doesn't want to go to her chain of command because they're going to call her a bigot because these generals are woke. And the Biden woke agenda coming down via executive order. He doesn't go through Congress for any of these transgender policies in the military. He does this via executive order. This is what's causing the recruitment crisis. There is a recruitment crisis. The U.S. military is falling behind in its recruitment goals. We are short 15,000 recruits. This just in, 15,000 recruits short of our 65,000 goal. Military chiefs continue to express concern that if recruiting numbers don't improve, the U.S. will not be able to face the next great power threat, nor deal with two conflicts at the same time: Russia, Ukraine, China, Taiwan. Big deal. All right, I do have to take a quick break. We're getting close to the end of the show here. Real quick housekeeping. Knights Action Park. I love Knights Action Park. I've gone to the driving range a bit, did some miniature golf there. They've got Splash Kingdom. They have the Fortress of Fun. I even did some go-karting there. It's a lot of fun. So starting, I think it's these passes are valid August 20th, then the weekend of August 26th and 27th. They are also valid for Labor Day weekend. I'm giving them away right now. A family 4-pack. If you text me right now, text the word summer, SUMMER, to 309-451-9299. You're going to be in the running to win Knights Action Park cool down this summer with some free passes with me from Cities 92.9. That's so funny. All right, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. That's hilarious. Can we get a refund on Brittney Griner, please? Yeah. I don't understand it. No idea. I mean, she did it to herself. Like, you don't go to other countries and bring drugs in. You don't even do that in the United States, right? I don't know how that even happened. I mean, it must have been some sort of private jet that she was on or whatever, where she didn't have to go through TSA. These celebrities, they have like they don't play by the same rules as us. Okay. So they play by different rules. But if I bring in, I'm pretty sure, I'm not too sure since it's been legalized, if I bring in marijuana into an airport, I don't think I can bring that into an airport and fly commercial airlines. Um, so yeah, can we get a refund on Brittney Griner? That would be great. And I would love to trade the Marine. Hey guys, we didn't mean to do that deal with Brittney Griner. We really just want the Marine back. And can we swap? Can we give you Brittney and you just give us the Marine who's being held captive by Russia? And we traded her for the Merchant of Death. This guy is a arms dealer, and he is a threat to the United States, a big threat to the United States and to the world. You know, they're so anti-gun. It's like, are you serious right now? You literally just let one of the largest arms dealers go for a WNBA player who isn't good. And I just played for you her slam dunk that the Sports Illustrated went crazy for. And it's like, dude, she's traveling. I can see that. And I don't even watch basketball. I'm not even a sports fan, but I can see it with my two eyes. Right. I saw the clip and I was like, that didn't look right. I'm confused. And then I saw the online, the people online just going after her. Hey, but at least she's traveling without drugs in her purse this time. 309-451-9299. You know, TK earlier, I brought up this military story, and I'm going to end on this story here in just a little bit about this military aged recruit. She's 18 years old, and TK, he was talking about this today. He goes, we had a trans woman, born male, drill sergeant, and I went through basic in 2020, and it was incredibly weird. They skirted the line of decency rules. For example, at night, a male drill sergeant could not go in to a female bay by himself without a female drill sergeant, but the trans drill sergeant could go into both female and male bays alone at night. So a male drill sergeant can't go into a female bay by himself, but because this person has some sort of identity crisis that he's going through and pretends that he's a woman, somehow that gives him the ability to go into female bays and male bays all by himself at night. Um, Even to the point where he, she, it would come into our male bay at night and yell at us for sleeping shirtless and say that it was sexually harassing her. Whoa. That is explosive. I mean, that is crazy. They are completely mentally ill. Google Drill Sergeant Kate Cole, they came out very publicly. So um, that's that story there with the military recruit. She's 18. She went through all this hell. Is going through hell right now. She hasn't done anything. I don't think she's resigned. She's considered resigning because there's no other way to do this without being called homophobic bigot and her life being over. There's one other story I want to get to here in just about 10 seconds. It's a nice news story, and we're going to end on something sweet. There's about 50 recruiters walking around Uptown last Friday, going in and out of all the stores. Wow. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. I live in Illinois. Illinois sucks. JB sucks. Chicago sucks. Yeah. I just told you about the story there with the peacekeepers and how the peacekeepers are criminals, and we're giving criminals yellow vests to go play guidance counselor with other criminals, and it's all on our dime. And this is a statewide program that was cooked up by Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker. I told you about that story. Thanks so much for texting in. I do appreciate it. I did want to end on a good note today. Happy news story. So a mom donates gifts to a hospital for her daughter's birthday. So for the past 2 years, Carrie has donated little baby outfits to this Spartanburg Regional Medical Center in the neonatal intensive care unit in South Carolina. So this is a sweet story. Carrie makes a donation in the month of July to celebrate her daughter's birthday. You see, Carrie's daughter, Ilana, was born early and spent more than 100 days at the facility. Thanks to the expertise and attention of the medical staff, Ilana is now 2 years old and she's thriving. So Carrie now gives back to mothers experiencing the same thing. Because preemies are so tiny, they need special clothes. As Carrie pointed out, just a simple gift of an outfit could go a very long way. This year, Carrie raised enough funds to donate 89 outfits, and she hopes to expand her charity mission to not only include Ilana's birthday in July, but also another donation around Christmas time. That's so sweet. Spartanburg Regional Medical Center, their intensive care unit for preemie babies. So sweet. Such a good news story, and it just brings a smile to your face, right? I do have to I mean, we're to the end of the show, 8:57 a.m. Before I go, I do want to make sure that you know that RFK Jr. is coming out now, and be expecting a lot of attacks against RFK Jr. because the Democrat leadership, they're terrified right now because he's rising in the polls. I think it was like 60-30 the last time I checked about that. But the smears are rising up against RFK Jr. He's on every media outlet, he's on every podcast, and his message is actually gaining a lot of traction faster than ever. And I'm very excited for RFK Jr. I won't vote for him because I don't vote for people who are pro-abortionists. Sorry. So that's going to do it for us. Be sure to donate to our Seats for Soldiers cause. That's something that we've got going on our website. You can check it out, cities929.com, or you can make a donation by texting the word SEATS, SEATS, to 77,000. Like I said, I'm going to be live out there at the Corn Crib, July 20th and the 21st, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. And we're saving seats for all the soldiers, and we're donating. All of the donations go to Hope for the Warriors so they can help Central Illinois veterans from all branches of the military, from enlisted to deployed. They help families. We are accepting donations now. Just $5 will get you a flag on the back of a seat in the Corn Crib Stadium. Be sure to donate by texting the word SEATS, SEATS to 77,000. That's our Jimmy Jones text line. You guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye. I love you.